Hello, thank you for joining in this live conversation. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Camille Preston, business psychologist and the founder CEO of AIM Leadership, and I'm thrilled to have my head of client relations with us here, Candace Vandenthal, who is both a trusted, revered partner, but also a deeply powerful, intuitive healer. So, welcome, Candace. I'm excited to be doing this conversation with you.
Yes, me too. It's so exciting to get to share just the response we've had with the book. I mean, we not to brag, but to brag, it hit Amazon #1, a couple of places, actually three, which is really exciting. It's really exciting because being in on this project, I've seen all that Camille has poured into, how much heart came into this, and just seeing how much it transformed your own conversations. I think that's really powerful to acknowledge too. It's like you're doing the work as well. And I think it's a really amazing journey to have been on. So yes, I'm totally going to brag because like we pumped out this book in less than 3 months, right? It was like three, maybe four, I think. So it's been in a journey, but it's been real. It's been really fun too.
It's been real. There's been some real moments. I love your enthusiasm, but it also speaks to, I think, our way of operating in the world, that we're listening to what's happening in the world. And I
Mhm.
think that's the thing that keeps coming back to me is so many people are really excited about the book, which makes me feel like it's timely. It's speaking to kind of where we are today as a culture, as a society.
Well,
And
and like to piggyback off of that, it's that we're hearing this so much and we're reading this more often. A lot of really astute people are recognizing, oh no, are recognizing that we have to start having these harder conversations and it just feels better, right? Like if you're sitting there and you're going through something and you say it, and it allows the space for others to say what is on their mind, and we can have these conversations without going into a full blown therapy session or
Mhm.
bringing down the energy. It's just more of matching where we're actually at so we can do some of the processing and bring more aliveness into our conversations instead of it feeling so boring.
Or superficial, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
shallow, absolutely, 100%. Well, so if you're joining in this conversation, we're thrilled that you're here, and we're probably guessing that you're here because you've either done something really big recently or that you are at a tipping point yourself. You're at a point of question where you're starting to say, what else is happening? What else is out there? And we didn't necessarily plan for the book to launch June 9th, but it came through that it should. And it turns out it's actually a wonderful time for people who are taking pause and vacation in the Northern Hemisphere, at least, to really step back and start to say, okay, what is it that really matters? And what is it that is driving us forward? So, Candace, do you want to lead us into some of the things we want to dive into?
Yeah, so today's conversation is all about the moment after success. So people that are joining today, it's really, you do all this work, and I think we kind of felt this at one point, getting to the pinnacle. But a lot of people get to that moment of success, and then they feel like it's like nothing. Like, did
Mhm.
I even do this? Was it actually there? Like, and you've worked with so many high performing achievers that get to that moment. Why do you feel like they get lost right afterwards?
Such a great question. It's funny because a lot of the people who seek me out and are like, I need to work with you, are incredibly successful. And they're often coming saying, okay, what's that next thing? What's that next thing? And it's interesting because that becomes a patterning, that becomes a habit, that becomes a way of being, always looking ahead, always saying, what else, what else, what else? And behind that, I think there's really a fear. Like, if
Mhm.
I were to stop, if I were to step back, if I was going to move away from all that is, who would I be? What would that look like? And so, founders, after they have a big exit, um, you launch your kids to college, they get into the college of their choice, they're super excited, and they're gone. And then there's this space. You get that next promotion, you settle into the job, and then you're like, what else is it? So it's kind of almost a blind intensity sometimes that goes after something. and then they get it and it doesn't maybe fill as many of the holes or parts of themselves. And then they if they're courageous, they start asking different questions. If they're courageous, they start saying, okay, wait a minute, where can I turn? I didn't anticipate this. What would this look like? I often joke, I'm a little bit of a closet nerd. You know that already, but I have 27 years of formal education between elementary school through my doctorate. And I think I had one 45-minute class on what is a good life. Like, what does it mean to have a good life? And so if you are feeling that angst, you're not alone. A
Right.
lot of people are asking that question.
Yeah, and you, I mean, I think that you say this often. It's like when their identity is so shaped around the outcome or what they're doing or their position, it can take away from the win itself because you're identifying with it versus it being an outside achievement. And what's something that you find is so commonly misunderstood as a reaction at the ending point of these successful moments that can even look like burnout or apathy, disconnect?
Yeah. So I think you hit on something really so spot on, which is this idea that when we are pushing so hard for something, we sometimes tune out or don't listen or don't trust our own intuition or our own wisdom. And we follow other people's rules. If I do this, I'll be successful. If I get this, I'll be happy. If I have that house, I get this job, I hit this bank account, hit this numbers. And it's scary to step back and ask those questions. And often I find people push and push and push and push until they can't hide anymore. Right? There's no other ways of like masking their curiosity about who are they and what is it that matters. And then they experience that as burnout. They experience that as apathy. And so I just want to highlight, if this is resonating for you and if this like is ringing true, there is tremendous fear in taking the foot off the gas pedal. I have one dear friend who earned his sabbatical, and I think he had like 9 years to use it. And then if he didn't use it, it would reset. And I'd have to double check what the numbers were. And right at the last minute, he actually used it because he was too afraid to almost take that step back and have that opportunity. So can I go a little bit more on energy?
I think what you're also saying is that part of the book there is a whole section on the lies we've been sold.
Yeah.
And it kind of hits on some of that right now, what you're talking about. So I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I think it's the lies that we've been sold about what is happiness, what is success. And for people who are hearing this, there's a question mark of like, do I dare question those structures, those beliefs, that foundation? And oftentimes that's the beginning part when I'm working with an executive in a one-on-one collaboration, is really starting to help them strengthen their own container. What is it I believe? What is it that matters? What is it that I'm moving towards? Whether for myself personally, for my family business, for this hospital I'm leading, because there's so many pressures at bay that we need to first kind of strengthen that container so that we can understand where we want to go. That's phase one. Phase two is starting to kind of craft that vision. I think energy gets pulled into this because, well, first of all, I think energy is so misunderstood. It's crazy. So I'm thrilled that burnout is a common word now, but I think it's often overlooked, or it's like we have the word for snow, but Eskimos have so many different words for snow. It's burnout is just one kind of like nugget. And when you really start to understand energy in the mind, body, spirit, emotion realm, and then you really start to look at how are you engaging that energy, and are you engaging it through cortisol and activation, or are you engaging it through a more enlivened sense of who I am? That's the work that so many people are saying this was really invaluable, Camille, is that I moved from this cortisol that I didn't even know I was addicted to into a really grounded sense of myself. And that's what Living Real is really hoping to do, is help you walk that path.
Yeah. Well, and do you feel if people had the right support system leading into all these different transitions or even these big launches, like do you feel that that would have been more beneficial instead of them having to carry it alone? Because a lot of these leaders kind of feel like they're alone in their position, like they don't really have anybody to turn to. And what's your take on that? Like, what does the right support look like?
I think it's, first of all, a great question and also a timely question because I think what we knew as support is changing, right? That we're
Mhm.
in a period of so much turmoil, change, deconstruction, reconstruction. And so the old ways of support was more like forcing, like do this, do this, do this, do this. And I think what we're really looking at now is like, who are you? What do you need to be the best version of yourself? You can still be driving towards those same outputs, those same outcomes. And like micro shifts, some small shifts can really move people in that direction. Um, if I can I share that you're about to move from the West Coast to the East Coast?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, I know.
And I I was reflecting on it after our conversation earlier. Just this idea of it's a beautiful like moment and pause. Like it's a
Mhm.
pain in the Batucci to
Yeah,
transition and move. But
absolutely.
it's interesting that the military sets up these rotations because it does force you to lift up, break your patterns, break your habits, break your routines, shift gears. And the research is actually really clear. Families that a couple that goes and relocates to a city where they know no one actually grows much stronger because they have to rely on each other and they have to build their networks. And and so yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's a great example of building a container, a marital container that you
Mhm.
can then strengthen and say, okay, what is it we want in this next location? What is it that we want in terms of community? And what does it look like to have real relationships as we set those up?
Yeah, well, and like what I'm also hearing you say is like that's how all transitions are, right? All transitions ask us to really stretch outside of ourselves to understand things in a different capacity and really you always use altitude, but to take altitude and look at things from such a different perspective to
Yeah.
where like I was sitting there just reflecting just in the space that I've been in and just all the growth that's happened here and I was like in tears on a Sunday just thinking about, I was like, oh my gosh, like this has been a lot of growth. And I'm like sad to leave, but excited for what's next. And
Mhm.
I think that when we're in those transition periods, if we can pause and have that moment of reflection instead of being ready for the other side, because it's really easy. Like in the military, especially life, like we live like months in advance. And so
Mhm.
presence is something that we can often struggle with. And so I'm very intentional before we leave a space to just like take it all in. And, even my husband was getting a little emotional the other day when he was thinking about all the things that transpired here for him. And it's like, even things like driving to the store, you're not going to go down this road anymore. Like, how many conversations have we had from this point to that point? So you start, if you're allowing yourself to be in the transition period in the present, then on the other side you get to experience this great moment of change, and it just kind of elevates the experience is what I would add to
Absolutely.
it. But
Absolutely. And if I were just to link it back to your first question, when we're
Mhm.
pushing so hard towards something like go, 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 execute, promotion, managing this launch, what have you, we often aren't as present as we want. And the book really is an invitation to presence. It's an invitation to think about it doing slightly differently. Um, and we're seeing people are really ready for that. With the LinkedIn Live, sorry, we're on a LinkedIn Live. The
Mhm.
Living Real events we've had, people are really eager to connect. They're really eager for different conversations. And
Yeah,
we
I want to talk about that because so what Camille's referencing is we're starting to put together, and we've already hosted a few events already about having these conversations in person and having it over dinner because that who doesn't love
break
to share
bread.
a meal,
Yeah.
right? But how can we hold that safe space for people to be a little bit more vulnerable, maybe just more open and relaxed and connected? And so it's something that Camille is like really excited to be a part of. And so we hope that if you're interested to kind of learn more about that, you'll reach out to us because we would love to like co-host that with you and just see these conversations open up more. And we really feel like that's going to be a highlight of these next several months is just getting to see people come back into community together and have those honest conversations.
Yeah. People have said, Camille, how do we do this outside of a formal event? And we're working on that too. So we have kind of a how to start to engage living more real. And yes, we would absolutely love to engage with that. And if it all feels scary or it feels a little uncomfortable, especially if you're a leader at the top of your organization, or you have people turning to you, or you're the head of your family, all of this makes so much sense. And I've heard people say, like, I don't even know where to begin to start living more real. The book is
Mhm.
a great place. I don't know if I told you this, Candace, but I had a dear friend, Toddy, reached out to me. She sent me a text. She said, we went hiking this morning. She sent me this beautiful picture of Colorado. She said, we went hiking together. And I loved what you said about da, 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 da. And then I realized she was listening to my book while she was hiking. And
Oh,
it was awesome.
that's so
And
yeah.
like, we want to support you because we believe so deeply that living real is vital to you being the best version of yourself as a leader, but also to where we need to grow as a culture. So that is what we do in a lot of our engagements, whether individually or teams, is helping
Mhm.
people start small, start safe, figure out those small steps, stabilize the container, and then get clear what success looks like.
Yeah, and that's one of the most valuable offerings that you provide, even the group in the group setting. And
Mm,
my observations has been the ability to come together and have a shared language. I think that is really what has helped these different teams that we've worked with, it like
mm,
really transition out of this feeling so individual and more as a collective, and like they can see those shifts within themselves, and they're even able to disperse that amongst their teams going down, which is really cool to see. Because when we're starting in an engagement, we're hearing what the disconnect is, where's the disjointed energy, and in that ability to like have everyone come to the table, you're then seeing these different threads of like, why is this pattern here? And oh, you're struggling with this same issue and we've never spoken about it before. And so it brings about all this different change that you weren't even expecting because you're having the conversation. And
yeah.
so and that's what we get so excited to do, is some of that work of like helping these leaders really see where those missing links are. Because once you get it here, it just shifts the whole organization. You get just amazing results. And that leads me into the question about like, for people that have always been in that go-to role, like
Mhm.
they're the head of their family or they're the head of the team, we see that they do struggle with asking for help. And how do they even begin to start that journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. And if that is resonating for you, self-gentleness would be my starting point, because the world has been telling you, you got to do this, you got to do this. Like, so many of our messages have
Mhm.
kind of pushed us in a direction. So recognizing you're not alone, that this isn't something you created, as a starting point. And I would say, if you wanted to do something today, right here, right now, I would say carve out a little time. It could be in the silence of your car, it could be in nature, finding a little space away from your normal routines to just still yourself, just listen to yourself, just open into, if I were to say, what is your heart's desire? That might be too big of a question, and people would be like, oh, that's not my jam, I'm out. But
Yeah.
like, if you could make a couple shifts, what would you want more of? What are
Mm.
the things you want more of? Because often that becomes a gateway. One of the things that like, being the rock can feel like a lot of weight and a lot of responsibility, and it's hard to change because so many people are relying on you. And if you are the rock, you're the ballast. So you make some small changes and it ripples throughout your organization, family and system. So no pressure, but I think small shifts make a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's that the ability to not have to have it all figured out, and know that everybody has to have support from some direction. Like, because in order to grow, we have to expand in a new way. And that
Mhm.
usually requires us, like you say, to build the capacity and also sometimes it means we need to adopt new skills or leverage skills in a different way. And you're really good about showing these leaders, hey, yeah, you have this great skill of communication. How do we up level that so that your team's actually listening? So
Or
there's
your kids, as the case may be.
I don't know if there's ever an answer for that one.
And so can I just go one step further? I'm listening to this conversation from another lens of perspective, and I can hear people say, yeah, I don't have time for that, or that sounds great, I don't have the relationships for that, or that sounds great, but everybody's looking at me for answers. How do I find that? And that is like where I think living real comes from, is a desire for more emotional connection, like deeper connection. And for me, living real came out of this compounded crisis. I had 5 deaths in 5 months, and it was like boom, boom, boom. But it really just, I didn't have a choice but to look at this. And so what I would say to people who are sitting on the cusp, do it before you have to do it.
Yeah.
Explore these new shifts, because I get how it can feel like a have to do right now, but once you crack the door, all of a sudden you're like, wow, I just talked to this person who I've known for 10 years, and I learned something I had no idea about them. And I feel a depth of connection, which is powerful.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it gives us a new way of living. And I can just say from the energy perspective, like the weight that gets lifted off of us
Mhm.
when we're just able to say what, and of course there's a balanced way of saying things, but like when we can just express and work through and be able to understand things and feel like we don't have to have it all figured out on our own. Um, Sometimes it's just great to have that outside guidance of, oh, I didn't even see it from this way. So just leading into the last question I have is again, it sounds like you're trying to guide people into taking even just 2 minutes for themselves, and those micro shifts. But what's something you think that they could implement today? Just like one little thing.
Um, well, there's so many different littles. I mean, one thing that's really simple is to look in the mirror and say, like, wow, I see you. Like, we move through our morning routine, whether you're shaving and brushing your teeth or what have you, so quickly. Giving yourself a moment of presence for yourself is helpful.
Mhm.
Um, Thinking about how do you show up a couple minutes early for wherever you're going, and let yourself land and be fully there before
Mhm.
you dive into another conversation. And and then I guess the one that I would really encourage people, you gave me an inch and I took a yard. The thing I would really encourage people to explore is this idea of, um, if I was quiet for a moment, what is it I can hear in terms of what I want? And that's really scary. So small steps forward. What I would offer you is that the fear is worse than the anticipation, and that so many people are eager. Actually, can I just throw out something else? I'm going to take us down a rabbit hole. This is why people really like the deep dives, is because they can see someone else living real, and then they can say, oh, I see how that applies in my life. So whether
Mhm.
you're in a deep dive or just start noticing people around you who are being a little bit more real, rec- recognize it, acknowledge it.
Mhm.
That will probably feel real, and dive
Yeah.
into.
Well, and one thing I'll add is that we've seen all of these articles come out from people like Melinda Gates. She's
Mm.
talking about her life, and we're finally starting to see this shift where more and more people are coming to understand that by being who I actually am, I don't have to carry the energy of not putting that out there, of having to live up to this or that expectation. And it just opens a whole nother level for us as far as like we see more success in our lives. And I guess that goes back to the origin of this live, is like we begin to redefine what that success outcome looks like. So yeah.
Yeah. Um, w- Thank you for joining this conversation. It is such a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about things that are so near and dear to our hearts. Um, Summer's a little wonky, so we're trying to do one a week, but they're going to be in different times because Candace is moving and I've got kids on summer break, but we look forward to continuing the conversation. If there's things you want to make sure that we hit, send us an email, pop it in the comments. We would love to know what's resonating and would love to know what you're looking for in future conversations.
Bye, everyone. Great
Have
to
a
talk.
great afternoon. Thanks, Candace.